Hi, and welcome to my recap of the first week of January 2026. Yes, Stuff of the Month is transitioning into Stuff of the Week, more or less. I'm doing this to keep these videos short and manageable. My first attempt at Stuff of the Month 2025 came in at a whopping hour and 20 minutes, and I did not like that. Wound up doing four different versions of it before settling on one that I thought was, you know, at least interesting enough for me, but left out a lot of stuff. And that bugged me. So let's see if this new format or this change sticks or what. I don't know. So let's begin, shall we? We're going to start with January 1st, and that in 1972. Uh, Creature Features aired a double bill of Night of the Living Dead and House of Horrors. Now, if I may be forgiven for making an unlearned assumption here, but I think this New Year's Day Creature Features double feature might be a tad top heavy, as Night of the Living Dead appears to be the superior picture by a considerable margin, but I'm making an assumption here, and you know what happens when you assume. Because I haven't seen House of Horrors yet. But it was one of the last gasps of the Universal Monster movie cycle that was released throughout the early 1940s. The studio had decided to start transitioning away from like B picture style production and move into more A class productions. Also, this movie was marred by the unfortunate passing of its star, Rondo Hatton, who stars as a psychopathic killer known as the Creeper. He did three of these pictures as the Creeper, but this was the only one I think Universal actually released, and they sold the second to a Grindhouse or a Poverty Row distribution company, and that was The Brute Man. However, this one was released by Universal and features, let's see, how can I put this? The character of the Creeper is saved from drowning by a sculptor who is played by Martin Kozlak. And then said sculptor uses the Creeper to murder those that have either displeased him or given his work harsh criticism. Now, the sculptor was played by Martin Kozlak. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was a very an actor with sharp features and cold eyes, which basically gave him a career out of playing baddies in all manner of shows. He appeared in Mission Impossible and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. He played Professor Charm on Batman. He was in, I think I mentioned Mission Impossible. If not, he was in Mission Impossible, It Takes a Thief, The FBI, The Wild Wild West. He was in, if you've seen those shows, you've seen Martin Kozlak. Also, I noticed that the sculpture that Kozlak makes, or his character makes, of the Creeper bears a resemblance to the Rondo Hatton sculpture used for the Rondo Awards. So there you go. I know Kozlak best for his appearance in the films The Flesh Eaters and The Mummy's Curse. But I have yet to see this particular entry, although it was released as part of Universal's Monster Classic collection. Who knows? I see it. January 2nd, in 1983, the Sunday Examiner Chronicle Datebook had this ad hyping the January 7th, 1983 release, or was it re-release, of Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker under the title Night Warning. which is how I saw it. Although no theaters or drive-ins are listed in this teaser ad, I did see Night Warning, I believe or suspect, on Saturday, January 8th, at the Alameda South Shore Twin, where it was on a double bill with the equally memorable The Beast Within. And this had had a really raucous and lively crowd. They were hooting and hollering and talking back at the screen through both pictures, and it was a memorable night at the movies. Um, One thing I really remember about it was I best knew Bo Svensson as Sheriff Buford Pusser in the last two Walking Tall movies and in the very short-lived Walking Tall TV series. So I wasn't really used to seeing him play an antagonist, which is what he is in this movie. His character of Detective Carlson is well, almost, I say, cartoonishly bigoted in regards to his homophobia. And I remember watching it and being so taken aback by it, and so just like this, that at one point I leaned over to the friend I was with and whispered in his ear that this has to be an act. I mean, was he closeted? I don't know. They never really said, but I, I was really stunned. The movie itself is wackadoodle crazy, and honestly, it has an opening that rivals the opening car crash of Final Destination 2. In fact, I wonder if the people who made Final Destination 2 had seen Night Warning or worked on Night Warning. Who knows? Also, on January 2nd, but in 1977, I posted this at the newspaper ad archive. We have an ad for the book Catch a Falling Spy by Lynn Dayton. This is evidently a retitling of the novel Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Spy, and it involves an unnamed MI5 or MI6 agent and a CIA agent that are tasked with extracting a defecting Russian scientist via a route through the Sahara Desert. And I'm sure plenty of spycraft shenanigans ensue, I guess. I haven't read the book. I'm not a big spy guy, but I like book ads, and I wanted to start putting them in here. Over the weekend, or throughout the week, we haven't been to the movies in a while. Tanya has been recovering from some minor surgery, but we finally got a night out, had a date night at the movies, and we wanted to go see something fun and upbeat. So we decided, hey, let's go see that ping pong movie, Marty Supreme, because we hadn't seen any of the trailers or anything. And boy, what a splash of cold water in the face that was. I had heard that this is the first movie that I have seen from the people who made Uncut Gems. And I remember hearing somebody describe Uncut Gems as a 2-hour panic attack, and that was the vibe I got from this movie. There was one time towards the end where I leaned over to Tanya and I was like, I hate this movie. We were writhing in our seats and covering our eyes and our ears during a lot of scenes. There was a lot of cringe in it. It wasn't the movie we were hoping to see. We wanted to see something a little bit more fun than what this movie was. And I just wanted to spend most of the movie uh, beating Marty over the head with a 2x4. He, I did not like the character, and um, I wanted to see him kiss the pig. But yeah, one thing I didn't realize until much later, I didn't recognize Penn Jillette in his small uh, role in the movie. And but I did recognize Abel Ferrara, director of The Driller, Killer, Miss 45, King of New York. body snatchers and all that. And it was really a hoot seeing him in the film. And I like that's probably my most fond memory of the movie is seeing Abel Ferrara. But yeah, if you like that movie, great. We didn't like it, but we did admire the acting and the technical prowess with which it was made. But that wasn't the movie we needed or wanted to see at that particular time. The other thing we watched, of course, was Stranger Things 5, and finally watched the final episode. And I will say that I thought the most rousing thing I can say about it was it was fine. Um, uh, there were aspects of the show where I felt it got a little bit too big and a little bit too over the top. And I don't like the term plot hole being tossed around all that much. But, I did think that the secondary antagonist just being dropped from the third act of the film was a baffling storytelling choice. That, 1 minute they're surrounded by the military, the next the military's gone. Where did they go? What happened to them? Huh? Also, I Vicky, Robin's significant other, her absence was quite conspicuous during the extended denouement, and I was like, would it have killed them to have that character at least be on the roof with the others? I think that I'm like, come on, guys. I mean, I could understand why she was not at the graduation because, Steven was there and maybe Robin was his plus one. So, but come on, this is ridiculous. But like I said, the most rousing thing I could say about it was it's fine. I not sorry that I watched it. Not sorry that it's over. I'm glad it's over. And it was better than Stranger Things: The First Shadow, which we saw. We saw on Broadway, and that was all sizzle, no steak. I still think that's the worst Stranger Things thing I've seen. Yeah, let's get back to the newspaper ads. January 5th, 1986, and we have a teaser ad for the opening of A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. I do not share the implied opinions given by Janet Maslin of the New York Times or Joel Siegel of ABC TV, stating that Freddy's Revenge was scary or as much fun as the original. One also needs to keep in mind that a sarcastic comment or aside could be clipped from a less than glowing review and made to appear as if the film were being praised. They did this all the time. I will say this. While I did think Freddy's Revenge was an entertaining enough movie and somewhat interesting, there was no point during its runtime where I was ever scared or unsettled by it. But I did and do find the film's in no way whatsoever subtle gay commentary to equal parts amusing and interesting. And I might revisit it at some point. I definitely need to watch the documentary about the star of the film, whose name is, what was his name? Mark Patton? I think it's called My Queer Nightmare, but I think it's on Shudder. I should watch that. Maybe I'll watch that today. Who knows? January 6th, 1974. Here's a Creature Features promo for The Evil of Frankenstein. That would be one of the two entries in the famed company's series that were not directed by Terence Fisher. This one was helmed by Freddie Francis. and I do consider it probably the weakest of the Cushing ones. I much prefer The Curse of Frankenstein, Revenge of Frankenstein, Frankenstein Created Woman, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, and Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell over this one. Although it's been a minute since I've watched it, and I should really revisit it. The other one that the other Frankenstein movie, and the one that starred Ralph Bates, and so it's not really technically part of their Frankenstein series, was the Jimmy Sangster helm horror comedy, The Horror of Frankenstein, which had David Prowse as the monster, and that one came out in 1970. This episode of Creature Features aired on Saturday, January 12th. And considering that I was all of probably 6 at the time, I would not have been allowed to stay up and watch it. But I would have if I could have. Also on January 6th, but way back in 1933, was this ad for Dance of the Virgins by Pearl Banks Stewart. It's a serialization of a romance novel that's going to be appearing in the American Weekly magazine newspaper supplement. And I could not find a lot of info about this particular book, or even about Pearl Banks Stewart, who appears to have written quite a few romantic serials and had at least one of her novels, Love Knows No Law, published in 1934. But she appears to be someone that is being lost to the sands of time. So it goes. January 7th, and we're going to go to 1982, and we have an ad for Super Fuzz. This was a movie with Terence Hill and Ernest Borgnine about a cop that gets some kind of radiation infusion that gives him superpowers unless he sees the color red. All I really remember about this movie were a smattering of cartoonish and slapstick-heavy TV spots for it, but I do think I saw the ending of the movie on HBO. If this movie ends with a wedding and star Terence Hill breaking the fourth wall while kissing the bride, then yes, I have seen the ending of Super Fuzz. I also remember the word around the school. I don't know if it was high or middle school. I can't remember. It was lackluster to scathing, but what did they know? Maybe the movie needed Bud Spencer rather than Ernest Borgnine. Don't know. But I might watch it if it pops up. Who am I? Might. I will watch it if it pops up somewhere. January 8th, we're going to go to 1982. And Daly City's Geneva Drive-In had a double bill of The Grim Reaper and Don't Go in the House, which is quite the double bill. This is the kind of double bill that drive-in critic Joe Bob Briggs loves to lionize on his show and in his when he goes down memory lane. It's also of note that The Grim Reaper, which was an easier to sell retitling of Joe D'Amato's infamous cannibal slasher opus, Anthropophagus, would be the very first movie Briggs ever reviewed for his quick to be popular and also syndicated drive-in movie review column. If you have a strong stomach, you might enjoy it. Many have, some have not. I'm not one of the. I'm in the latter. I remember we saw the R-rated version. We saw the Grim Reaper version, and I think my friend and I dubbed it the Grim Sleeper, but it had the more notorious gore moments cut from it. But yeah, it's a pretty. If you watch Anthropophagus, it's pretty. Ugh. Um, Now, its second feature, Don't Go in the House, was a re-release of a 1979 movie. And this is a really nasty little riff off of Psycho that features a psychotic mama's boy incinerating women with his trusty flamethrower. Ouch. Yeah, it's pretty dark and grim. Um, so that's a double bill, right? Closing out the week, January 9th, 1987, we have The Kindred from 1987. I think I said that. It's a muddled creature feature that I think had to set some kind of record for the use of slime in a scene. They douse the set and poor Rod Steiger with the stuff. I mean, they used gallons. I think they used a tanker full of the stuff for it. But I like the creature effects, and I found it in 1987. I found it a pretty a pleasant enough waste of 90 or so minutes. I haven't seen it in 30 or 40 years, but and never really felt the need to revisit it. But I still remember Kim Hunter yelling, "Anthony!" And I do have the film's soundtrack. David Newman. It's an early score by David Newman, and he and Perez Sarabandi did a limited release of it. So there's that. So that was those were the newspaper ads I feel worth mentioning that I posted on Ghoulies, Ghosties, and Long-Legged Beasties, or the newspaper ad archive. The two things that we watched. And now I'm going to move on to books and purchases. Haven't read anything outside of a short story or two from the Twilight Zone magazine June '81 issue, The End of the Dove, and I'm working on a review of Deadline, another story from that, which I might record later today or not. I don't know. But some books and magazines that have been added to Mount Sudoku. First up is Josh Mallerman's Watching Evil Dead, Unearthing the Radiant Artist Within. I found this while browsing at Barnes & Noble, and I'm looking forward to reading this because it sounds right up my alley. There. This was another one that I didn't expect to find, never even heard of, but Cooler Than Cool, The Life and Work of Elmore Leonard. Is that right? Yeah, The Life and Work of Elmore Leonard. And I was a huge Leonard reader when I was in the 80s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I burned through a good dozen or so, maybe 24 of his books in short order. So I'm really, and I'm a big fan of the movie 52 Pickup and Mr. Majestic, which is movies he wrote. So I would be like definitely looking forward to reading this. I also picked up this issue of The Dark Side, which gives a cover for The Hills Have Eyes, but I got it because there is an article about Jean Rollin in here that I want to read. And while I'm going through and getting all of the, Dario Argento and other cult filmmakers, the one gap in my library or collection right now is the films of Jean Rollin, and who is an acquired taste, but is an oddball French filmmaker who specialized in weird vampire tales. I went to Berkshire Books in Concord, which is one of our local used book dealers. I think it's going to become my preferred shopping destination for books now because my goodness, did they have a lot of goodies in there. So I picked up The Man from Avon by Michael Avalone. I think that's how you pronounce it, this is, sounds just crazy. It was a quaint New England village until flying saucers were spotted and before Larry McKnight, the man from Avon, came to town. The government's most secret UFO investigator and Avon Books' top salesman was soon thrown into a wild, death-defying adventure. He stumbled across many dead bodies and a few very live and luscious ones. The nation's existence was at stake. Only one man could prevent disaster. He was the man from Avon. So, I'm looking forward to that. I'll read it sometime between now and 2036. I also got Edgar Rice Burroughs at the Earth's Core. I wanted to revisit and reread, or at least read some more Burroughs, and this seems like a great place to start first in that series. I did read Tarzan, the first Tarzan and the second Tarzan novels, but I haven't read any others. But I did see they did have several copies of the novelization of the film Tarzan and the Valley of Gold, which is Ballantyne basically called it, like, Tarzan novel number 25, and that novelization was written by Fritz Leiber. They had a couple of copies there. I might pick that one up too, because I've seen the newspaper ad for Tarzan in the Valley of Gold while I go through all of the old issues or editions of either the San Francisco Examiner or the Oakland Tribune, clipping out the ads. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to this. I reviewed The Fireman's Daughter by Phyllis Eisenstein from the Twilight Zone magazine I'm reading, and I found a novel that she had written that's with Alaric the Minstrel, and it says here, a wandering minstrel was all Alaric wanted to be, but he was born with a power that let him travel anywhere he'd ever been or could see with a mere thought. It was harmless magic, but to the people of the South, it made Alaric that most dreaded of beings, a witch. So he becomes a voluntary exile, journeying to the lands, playing for his meals, bringing happiness to high and lowbrow alike, or high and lowborn alike, until he came to the Valley of the Red Lord. In the Red Lord's castle, Alaric discovered a horror that was stealing the life and soul from the land. Using his power to flee this valley of death for the safety of the far north, he was adopted by the nomad tribes as one of their own, and was challenged by their own great witch to learn the extent of his magic. Yet Alaric couldn't forget the terror he had left behind. One day, he knew he'd have to challenge the evil that waited in the Red Lord's realm. So, I'm looking forward to reading that at some point, sometime between now and 2036, if I'm still alive. And finally, the one book that was kind of like, it was a little on the pricey side for me, but I was like, I couldn't walk away from it. And this was another novelization of a film in the Corman Poe cycle, novelization of The Pit and the Pendulum by Lee Sheridan, based off the script by Richard Matheson. I have seen The Pit and the Pendulum. I don't remember much about it outside that it was a rare sympathetic role, more or less, for Vincent Price, and that Barbara Steele was in it. And I do remember Barbara Steele, but who doesn't remember Barbara Steele, who is my age? Come on. The woman is an icon. She's a legend. Also arriving in the mail was the new issue of Fangoria magazine, which has Sam Raimi's Send Help on the cover. and I'm hoping to see that on the big screen. One thing I do like about or love about Fangoria is also that they have started doing commemorative bookmarks for their subscriber issues, and this is the fourth in the series, and I use these bookmarks, of course. I'm using it in Sacrament by Clive Barker and all the other books that I'm reading. Uh, Most of my reviews for books or reading have been, well, all of them so far have been with the Twilight Zone magazine. And I'm thinking of also, as I reach the end of it, thinking of diversifying and reading other short stories and other, uh, as I stumble through books. But I have this, this anthology of weird fiction that's just sitting around here in my office somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. It's Weird Women and classic supernatural fiction by groundbreaking female writers, 1852 to 1923. Oh yeah, look here, and I even got the Fangoria subscriber cover for the Toxic Avenger remake. That's using that bookmark there. I figured I would start reading the short stories in this, as well as the other short stories in the other weird anthology I have, which is Weird Frequencies. And of course, I have like a whole bunch of others, but I seem to be enjoying doing the short story and short form reviews. And that's it, folks, for this week. Uh, we'll see what the next week brings. And yeah, I've kind of ran out of gas. So have a good weekend. I will see you in a week or two. No, actually, you'll see me next week with a review of probably Deadline and a couple other things, and maybe a puzzle video. It's been pretty quiet in the backyard for the trail cam. Not a lot going on out there, so I did get some footage of the storm that destroyed our backyard and our newly built pergola, which now no longer exists, and we've given up the ghost on that. And yeah, so next week maybe might have a jigsaw puzzle assembly video. Definitely have some reviews of short stories, at least Deadline, and uh, who knows? I plan on seeing Avatar: Fire and Ash this tonight. Tanya and I are going to go see a 3D show because if I'm going to see that movie, I'm going to see it in 3D. And I'm really hoping to catch Primate sometime next week because I want to see some rabid killer chimpanzee movie because that's how my heart goes. So until next time,